Chapter 1. Historiography. Development in the West. In this chapter, we will look on what is historiography, historical research method, tradition of historiography, modern historiography, notable scholars in Europe. Let us start with the introduction of the chapter. What is historiography? Historical events are recorded by critically examining the historical references and writing the historical narrative. The writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. The tradition of writing historical narrative, that is historiography, was not prevalent in the ancient societies of the world. A scholar who writes such a narrative is called historian. Herodotus. Herodotus was a Greek historian of the 5th century BCE. He used the term history for the first time for his book entitled The Histories. Let us move on to the topic Tradition of Historiography. We have learnt about the historical research method where the writing of critical historical narrative is known as historiography. A scholar who writes such a narrative is a historian. The historian cannot include every past event in his narrative. The inclusion and interpretation of historical events by the historian often depends on the conceptual framework adopted by him. His style of writing is determined by that conceptual framework. The tradition of writing historical narrative, that is historiography, was not prevalent in the ancient societies of the world. However, that does not mean that they were not aware of the historical time or were not eager to know about it. Ancient people also felt the need of passing on the stories of the life and valor of their ancestors to the next generation. Ancient communities all over the world used various means like cave paintings, storytelling, singing songs, and ballads for this purpose. These traditional means are looked upon as the sources of history in the modern historiography. Let us move on to the topic, the earliest inscription in the Louvre Museum. The earliest of inscription in the Louvre Museum dates back to 4500 BCE. It records a battle between two kingdoms and can be traced to Sumer civilization in Mesopotamia. Names of the Sumerian kings and the stories of battles fought by them have been preserved in various inscriptions. Let us look on to the next topic, modern historiography. Modern historiography considers all aspects of human life as equally important as chronology of historical events. What are the 4 characteristics of modern historiography? There are 4 main characteristics of modern historiography. They are as follows. Number 1. Its method is based on scientific principles. It begins with the formation of relevant questions. Number 2. These questions are anthropocentric. It means that these questions are about the deeds of the members of ancient human societies of a particular period. History does not suggest any interrelation between the divine and the human deeds. Number 3. Answers to these questions are supported by reliable evidence. Number 4. History presents a graph of mankind's journey with the help of the past human deeds. Let us look on to the next topic, development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography. Prior to the 18th century, all European universities were interested only in the philosophical discourses revolving around divine phenomena. Gradually, the scenario began to change. In 1737 CE, the Göttingen University was founded in Germany. This university had an independent department of history for the first time. Later, other German universities also became centers of historical studies. Scholars by then had come to believe in the possibility of studying the social and historical truths by applying scientific methods. Thus, philosophical discussions focused more on the objectivity in history and historiography. This is how the scientific perspective in historiography developed in Europe during the 18th century. Notable scholars in Europe. Let us have a look at the contributions of the few notable scholars. Number 1. Karl Marx. Number 2. Michel Foucault. Number 3. Simone de Beauvoir. Feminist historiography. Number 4. Voltaire. Number 5. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Number 6. Leopold von Ranke. Number 7. René Descartes. Let us move on to the topic René Descartes. René Descartes insisted on verifying the reliability of historical documents by critically examining them. In his opinion, a researcher must never accept anything for true till all grounds of doubt are excluded. Let us move on to the next topic, Voltaire. Till the 18th century, historiography only meant arranging historical events in chronological order. In Voltaire's opinion, along with objective truth and chronology of historical events, considering social traditions, trade, economy, agriculture, etc., was also important in historiography. This gave rise to the thought that all aspects of human life are important in writing history. This gave rise to modern historiography. Hence, Voltaire is said to be the founder of modern historiography. Let us move to the next topic, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Hegel was a German philosopher. He insisted that the historical reality should be presented in a logical manner. He also thought that the presentation of history is bound to change over time, as new evidence would come forth. With Hegel's philosophy, many scholars were convinced that historical methods were not of lesser quality, though they differed from scientific methods. The collection of his lectures and articles is published in a book entitled Encyclopedia of Philosophical Sciences. His book, Reason in History, is well known. In the same topic, let us look on dialectics. Number 1. The concept of dialectics, which is based on opposites, was first put forth by Georg Hegel. Number 2. Human mind cannot understand the true nature of that event without understanding the opposites like good, bad, or true, false. Number 3. In order to understand the true nature of a thing, one needs to know both true and false as well as good and bad. Number 4. The method of analysis which is based on such opposites is known as dialectics. Let us move on to the next topic, Leopold von Ranke. Number 1. Leopold von Ranke, born in 1795, was a German historian. Number 2. Historiography of the 19th century was greatly influenced by his thoughts. Number 3. He spoke about the critical method of historical research and put emphasis on the importance of information gathered through original documents. Number 4. He also stated that all types of documents associated with the historical event need to be examined with greatest care. Number 5. He believed it was possible to reach the historical truth with the help of this method. Number 6. He criticized imaginative narration of history. Thus, this was Leopold von Ranke's perspective of history. Let us move on to the next topic, Karl Marx.
Class Theory by Karl Marx. Karl Marx was a German historian. In his theories, there is a division among people into two classes or groups. A small group of capitalists who own the means of production and a larger group of the working class who work to earn wages. 1. According to Karl Marx, history was not about abstract ideas, but it was about living people and human relationships. 2. Human relationships are shaped by the fundamental needs of people and the ownership of the means of production to meet such needs. 3. The accessibility of these means to different strata of the society may not be equal. 4. This inequality causes a division of the society into classes, leading to class struggle. 5. According to Marx, human history is the history of class struggle, as the class that owns the means of production economically exploits the rest of the classes. The rich class gets richer and the poor class stays poor. The gap between these classes keeps increasing.
Let us move on to the next topic, Michel Foucault. Number 1. In the early 20th century, arranging historical events in a chronological order was the concept of writing history, and in Foucault's opinion, it was not right. Number 2. In his method of writing history, he laid emphasis on explaining the transitions in history. Number 3. According to him, archaeology does not strive to reach the ultimate historical truth, but attempts to explain various transitions of the past. Therefore, he called his method the archaeology of knowledge. Let us look at Annales School. The Annales School was founded by Marc Bloch and Lucien Febvre in 1929. Number 1. At the beginning of the 20th century, a new school of historiography arose in France known as Annales School. Number 2. Annales School was started by French historians and given new direction to history writing. Annales School helped in recognizing that history is not only about the political events, kings, great leaders, and accordingly politics, diplomacy, and wars, but also about the climate, local people, agriculture, trade, technology, means of communication, social divisions, and their collective psychology, etc. in the historical times. Let us move on to the next topic, feminist historiography. Number 1. Feminist historiography means the restructuring of the history from the perspective of women. Number 2. The writings of Simone de Beauvoir, a French historian, helped in establishing the fundamentals of feminism. Number 3. The feminist historiography emphasized not only on the inclusion of women in history, but also on rethinking of the male-dominated perspective of history. Number 4. It drove historical research to focus in depth on various aspects of women's life, such as their employment, their role in trade union, institutions working for their cause, their family, etc. Number 5. In the historical writings after 1990, women were portrayed as an independent social class. Thus, this is feminist historiography in brief.